Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Iconic Dollcast. My name is Sage, your host. Welcome back to another episode all about dolls. Today, we're going to be deep diving into American Girl's iconic Molly McIntyre. We're going to be talking about Molly's iconic stories and all of the outfits that go with her stories. So I'm really, really excited for this. I do want to let you guys know that this episode does have a pretty big video component to it. So if you want to watch as you listen, please head over to Spotify or YouTube at youtube.com/iconicdollcast. The Iconic Dollcast will be coming back very soon with brand new episodes. I'm super, super excited about that. So keep checking back on my Instagram, Iconic Dollcast, for when those episodes will start coming out. As always, please follow me on Instagram. You can follow me at Britney Spears Custom Dolls, and you can also follow the official podcast Instagram, Iconic Dollcast, and follow me on TikTok at Britney Spears Dolls. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I hope you enjoy this deep dive on American Girl's iconic Molly McIntyre. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. It feels like it's been forever since I put out an episode, and I'm so happy to have today's topic be my first for 2024. Like I said, we're going to be deep diving into Molly, the iconic American Girl, and just a few things before we start. I know that American Girl is not for everyone, and if you're not into American Girl, I totally get it. But I definitely suggest if you're even a little bit curious about American Girl, check out this episode. I'm going to be talking about why this doll brand, the books, the merchandise, of course, the dolls, have such a special place in my heart. So even if you're just a little bit curious, I would check it out because it might, sway you to look a little deeper into American Girl. And the reason I decided to choose this as my first episode of the year, I think in my last episode, maybe, I talked about how my grandpa was really sick. He was in and out of the hospital, and unfortunately, my grandpa did pass away. He passed away on the 11th of February, and it's obviously been a very hard time, but I do have to say I'm so thankful for this podcast, just getting to kind of step out of reality and chat with people about dolls and put together this episode has really helped distract me, and I really appreciate all the love and support you guys have sent me. Thank you so much. If you're a longtime listener, you know my grandparents raised me. I talk about them all the time, and so while it is a really super sad thing in life, my grandpa was 94 years old. He lived an amazing life. My grandpa was an artist. I truly believe all my creativity comes from him. And honestly, don't think if I was raised by someone else, I don't think I would be as artistic as I am. And Britney Spears Custom Dolls might not even exist. So I would like to dedicate this episode to my grandpa because not only is his passing very sad and I want to celebrate him, but I thought what better way to do it with the podcast than talking about Molly, the American Girl, because as you also probably know, I was raised on American Girl, and my grandparents were super supportive. They taught me how to read chapter books, reading American Girl, and I just have so many memories specifically with Molly and my grandpa. I would definitely say my grandma was way more into dolls than my grandpa was, but with Molly, I think he really resonated with her and enjoyed her stories and having me read them to him and vice versa because Molly really grew up during my grandpa's era. So my grandpa was born in 1929, and I guess you could say he kind of grew up in both Kit and Molly's era, and we just never really got into Kit. So my grandpa would have been a teenager when Molly's stories take place. So there was a lot of stuff that he could relate to, and stuff that he could really explain to me in depth. We talked a lot about rationing, which is something you'll see is a huge part of the book just because they had to ration things during World War II. And he also talked about victory gardens and the war effort. So this story and this doll have such a special place in my heart. Reminds me of my grandpa. And recently, just because, we all deal with grief in different ways, I just happen to buy a lot of dolls, and sometimes I'll go really all out. You guys know I am, I love dolls. I buy them all the time, but I do try not to spend too much money on one doll. But recently I decided, just to kind of celebrate my grandpa's life and have something for me, I decided to buy most of Molly's collection, which I always wanted when I was a kid. And we'll talk about it through this episode, how each American Girl, they have 6 stories that come with them, the original ones at least, and they all follow a consistent story, and each book had a large amount of merchandise that you could buy, whether it be a costume or accessories. Each book had quite a few things you could buy, so I didn't have too many of the accessories or extra outfits growing up because I was just really into the doll. That's all I really needed to keep myself busy, but I did have some, and recently I did get all the Molly costumes and accessories I ever wanted, so I'm super excited to share that with all of you. Please, if you haven't, I've done a couple episodes on American Girl previously, which I really enjoyed, and I also have some new ones coming up for the new season of the Iconic Dollcast as well. Like I said in the intro, those episodes will start coming out very soon. I will let you guys know when they're coming, but I decided, hey, maybe I'll do a little bonus episode to fill the time before the new season premieres, and this is actually going to be a 2-parter. So in this episode, I'm going to talk about Molly's first 3 books and collections. And I had a lot of fun doing this, and I hope you guys enjoy it as much as I did. One thing I wanted to tell you guys is a fun fact. So when I decided to make a podcast, it was actually, I think, like a whole year before I even started making it. So I had this idea in the back of my head, and originally, because this was the summer, I revisited all the American Girl books from when I was a kid. And originally, this podcast was going to be an American Girl doll podcast. And I was going to go through each character, all their stories, all their costumes and accessories. And that was the initial plan. And so a few weeks ago, I was just doing some clutter clean out, and I found my notebook where I had all of my notes for these episodes that I was going to do. And obviously the podcast developed and turned into something completely different, but just via all that we're going through with my grandpa and revisiting Molly and getting her collection, I decided to revisit the books once again. And I was going through my notes and I decided, you know what, I'll just do an episode on this. Maybe I'll do, some other episodes on American Girl dolls specifically, but we're going with Molly today, and I think you guys are really going to like it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about each book and give you a synopsis, if you will, of what goes on in each book. Just a warning, this episode will contain spoilers. If you are at all interested in getting into American Girl and you fully plan on it and you want to be surprised by the books, please come back to this later, because I will be going in depth and talking about very specific details from the books. And then after I'm done with that, I'm going to show you a piece of my collection and talk about some of the other accessories that were available for each book, as well as the costumes and various changes on the doll costumes, variations throughout the years, all that stuff. And again, adding some fun tie-ins with my grandpa. So we're going to get into it now, starting with book 1, Meet Molly. All right, so now let's dive into Molly, my personal favorite American Girl. Just some quick facts. Molly McIntyre is a 9-year-old girl growing up in Illinois during World War II in 1944. World War II took place from 1939 to 1945 and started with the invasion of Poland by Hitler and Nazi Germany and declaration of war on Germany by Britain and France. I am keeping this super brief because this could be a whole entire episode, but I do know Just from what I learned in school, there was a ton of countries, I think like 30 involved in this war, and the US got involved in World War II when on December 7th, 1941, the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor occurred. So Molly's story begins in the aftermath of that just a few years later. Now, I just want to have a reminder here. These books are obviously for kids. They are extremely watered down, but I do think that the author of this book, let me look, it's Valarie Tripp. I think she did a really good job of still showing the impacts of World War II on Americans during that time without really going into any super gruesome details because, again, these books are for kids. It gives them the gist, a synopsis, if you will. It doesn't get super scary, but a little bit, and we'll get there. Molly's story develops obviously along the way, and so does the war. So we'll definitely get into that. But each of the original American Girls came with 6 books that follow a consistent storyline. And so we're going to start right now with Molly's first book, which is called Meet Molly. So just looking at my original notes, like I said, I wrote these a really long time ago. My notes on the first 3 books are much shorter than the rest. But basically in Meet Molly, it introduces Molly, her family. She has a younger brother named Brad, an older brother named Ricky, an older sister named Jill, and they live with her mom, and her dad is actually overseas. He's a doctor, and he is helping with the war. He is helping all the wounded soldiers over there. So he's away, and it's obviously set a whole new dynamic for the family. The kids really miss him, and it's a big part of Molly's story. So that's how it starts. It introduces you to all of that. And right off the jump, it goes into, they have a housekeeper. Her name is Mrs. Guilford. And during this time, a lot of foods were rationed. They couldn't use as much sugar or butter just because they were trying to make sure that they had enough of that. Just wartime, super scary, super crazy. And their housekeeper, Mrs. Guilford, she makes turnips for dinner one night, and Molly is not having it. One thing I will say about Molly is she is a little bit of a brat, but most of us were when we were 9, so this goes on for a while, but she is a little bit of a brat. She doesn't want to eat them. She thinks they're disgusting, and Mrs. Guilford is just appalled and basically says, well, you don't get to leave the table until you finish them, and she just sits there. She's like, fine, I'm not eating them. And so her mom comes home and Molly's still at the table and she kind of figures out what's going on. And it's a really sweet moment. She basically, I don't want to say caves, but she really understands that Molly does not want to eat these turnips. So she heats them up, puts a little cinnamon in them, and obviously they taste better. And she gobbles them all down. And it's just a sweet moment, but it's also pretty telling because they were having to eat a lot of foods that kids probably don't necessarily like, and so it was just a part of life back then. So anyway, you then meet Molly's friends, Linda and Susan. They are a big part of these stories. They are in every single one of them, and I think Susan is kind of the silly, I don't want to say airheaded, because, she's 9. She's just a little bit more free spirit, and then Linda, in my opinion, is just a little bit more serious. So they are excited because it's going to be Halloween and they need to figure out what they're going to be. So again, we're in wartime. Parents weren't buying costumes, they were making them, and a lot of fabrics or supplies that you might use for Halloween costumes at the time were not available. So they had to be pretty creative. And so they talk about being the 3 blind mice or Cinderella and the ugly stepsisters. This is one of Molly's moments where you're like, ooh, she is a little bit of a brat. She suggests that she be Cinderella. She implies that, they should be Cinderella and the stepsisters, but she alludes to the fact that she would be Cinderella, but whatever. They end up deciding to be hula dancers, which is problematic, but they make their costumes out of, paper and paint, and they make their own, flower necklaces, and problematicness aside, they're super cute, super crafty, super creative, and they go trick-or-treating, and her brother ends up, spraying them with water and ruining their costumes and plays a big prank on them, and they go home, and her mom finds out and makes Ricky, that's her older brother, give Molly, Linda, and Susan all his candy. That's his punishment, but the girls decide, no, that's not enough. And decide to get him back. Their older sister Jill has a friend named Dolores, and he has a crush on her, and he's always getting like nervous whenever he's around her. So the girls decide to get all of Ricky's dirty laundry, underwear, socks, pajamas, whatever. They go up in his room, and as Dolores is walking out of the house with Jill, they dump it all on her, and it's like super awkward. Ricky gets really embarrassed. Their mom comes home and finds out and gives them this whole speech on how, enemies who fight don't win anything and they should all be trying to get along. And it's just a very simple, sweet story. So, like I said, I don't have a whole lot of notes on the first few books. That's pretty much the gist of Meet Molly. They introduce us to her friends, and the fact that her dad is away helping wounded soldiers, and her brother is mean to them. That's very common still, and how they really should be working together and not misbehaving, quote unquote, and it's very sweet. So now we're gonna get into a little bit of the doll stuff. So I'm going to switch over to video. Again, this does have a video portion to it, but I'm going to be very detailed, so you can still just listen to it. But if you want to and have more of a visual aid, head over to Spotify. It'll be there. It'll also be on my YouTube channel, which I do not do anything with, but it's there. So we're going to talk about some of the outfits from Meet Molly. We're going to talk about some of the accessories, and it'll be our first look at all the things that each of these books came with merchandise-wise. So I'm really excited for it. So now that we've talked about the book, Meet Molly, we are going to talk about the doll, because obviously this is a doll podcast. So we're going to look at some of the clothes and accessories that were available for Molly from this book, and then we'll do some takeaways from the book as a whole at the end. So this is Molly's Meet outfit. That's what they call it. Definitely the most iconic outfit of hers. I think all of the girls, their main Meet outfit is their most special, the most iconic, the one everyone recognizes. It's very cute. She's got a cute little beret and her iconic glasses. And I love her sweater. I love her shoes and her little locket. She also has a bag, which I'll show you guys when we get into Molly's trunk. But this is the outfit she wears for most of the book. And like I said, her most iconic. American Girl also from this book released her hula outfit, her Halloween outfit, which is definitely, like I said, a little bit problematic, but I definitely remember wanting this as a kid growing up. And now looking at it, I definitely think I could make it myself. I'm not saying I would, but they had this. So those are the two main outfits that they have for Molly from this book. Again, let's take one more look at her. She's super cute. Her braids are so nice. She has really long hair, which I always loved as a kid. I loved brushing her hair. This is not my original Molly. My original Molly lived a great life. I played with her all the time. There was no coming back for her. So I did buy this a couple summers ago when American Girl re-released the original 6 characters in their original form. So she looks exactly like my Molly did when I was a kid. There's been several variations of some of these dolls, which we'll talk about in a little bit. I will say that the Be Forever version of Molly is trash. Don't like it. Don't like her outfit. I think that doll only ever made it to Costco, so I don't think she had a wide release, thank God. But they actually did end up bringing Molly back. I don't want to say permanently, but you can get her still right now, just like this, and you can get a couple of her outfits as well. So I would say that my favorite piece from her collection for this book is definitely her Meet outfit. It's iconic. It's my favorite, I think, outfit of all of them, just because it is Molly to me. And I would say my least favorite piece is probably the Halloween costume, just because it is problematic. But like I said, I definitely wanted it as a kid. And now that I'm older, I do think I could make it on my own, but probably won't. And then I did say that this was part of the re-release that American Girl did. And then a special grandpa memory. I mentioned it. He read me this book and I didn't know what turnips were. So he ended up going and getting some turnips and cooking them for me Molly was absolutely right. Turnips are disgusting, but I mean, my grandpa had me try them in their original form, no sweeteners, anything. And I was like, ugh, this is disgusting. But then he did end up adding some cinnamon and butter to them and then cooking them again. And they were actually pretty good. So that's just a very, very special memory I have with my grandpa. I know that rationing was something that always stuck with him. He used to always make these gingerbread cookies and he like would not add any sugar to them, and it wasn't because of rationing or anything. I think it's just what he was used to, and I just remember being like, these are disgusting. But anyway, that is the gist and the synopsis of Meet Molly, the first book, and now we're going to get into the second book, Molly Learns a Lesson. All right, so now we're going to get into book two, which, like I said, I didn't have a whole lot of notes on books 1, 2, and 3, and I'm actually going to say it's probably because I remember reading those the most. I definitely read those books as a child many times, so I think I just have most of it in my memory. And I will say right now, I do think that the second book, it's called Molly Learns a Lesson. I think this one might be my favorite of the series. I don't even need to look at my notes for this book. It is just something I remember so well. So basically, we're continuing the story, and now we're in what it was like growing up during World War II in school. So Molly learns a lesson. It starts out, you meet Molly's teacher, Mrs. Campbell, who she's obsessed with. And there's this really annoying kid in her class who reminds the teacher that they are going to do like a math quiz or something. We all knew that one kid who probably is like really rich and successful today, but they were still annoying. And so we see a little bit of school with Molly, and then their teacher, Miss Campbell, says that their school is having a contest. It's called the Lend a Hand contest, and that is basically each class is going to be split into two, and they have to do some kind of craft or something to help the war effort. Because again, this whole series is centered around what it was like for kids growing up and trying to navigate through the war and figure out what they could do to help. And so we also get a little bit more of this girl. Her name is Allison. She is in the first book. And basically, Allison is like, in my opinion, like the pretty girl at school. I don't know if that is what they were aiming for, but she seemed like the popular girl, as popular as you could be in third grade. And Molly, not even Loki, Molly literally hates her and never really gives a reason. But she's always like, I think in the first book, they get jealous because she's going to be an angel for Halloween. She's like, well, we have to do better than her, whatever. So Allison, the class gets split into two, boys against girls, and which, oh my gosh, I would have been so annoyed as a kid. I was never trying to hang out with the boys. Anyway, Allison comes up with the idea that the girls should knit socks and send them over to the soldiers, and maybe they'll win if they do that. And I think the boys are collecting like tinfoil or something. Anyway, so Molly is like adamantly against this, but she doesn't really say anything until later. Her friends, Linda and Susan, are like, well, what should we do? And Molly's like, I don't know, but we're not doing that. So they go back to Molly's house after school, and this particular scene, it's ingrained in my mind. Molly, Linda, and Susan, they have like a separated garage that has an attic or something in it. And there's just a bunch of old furniture, and they've basically built themselves a clubhouse. And I don't know, I just remember the way it's described. I just was like, oh, that's so cool. And like my friends and I used to make little like clubhouses. And I don't know, it put a smile on my face when I revisited it again. And so they're up there brainstorming ideas, and they come up with the idea that instead of knitting socks, the three of them are going to go house to house on the same day and collect bottle caps. And they think it's an amazing idea. They're super excited. And then they see that Allison has approached Molly's house and she's talking to Mrs. Guilford, the housekeeper, and she points up to the attic of the garage, and the girls hide because they're like, oh my gosh, we don't want her to see us meeting. She'll know we're up to something, whatever. So they all hide. It's super dramatic. Allison comes upstairs to find them, and they're all hidden. She doesn't know where they're at, so she's like, okay, whatever, bye. She leaves the invitation. It's like a very cute little invitation inviting all the girls to her house at 9 a.m. on, I think it's Saturday or something, whatever, to knit socks to help the war effort. And Mainly, I mean, Linda and Susan, here's the thing. Sometimes I really feel like they're like, okay, why do you hate her? Like, she's cool. And, but they always stick with their friend Molly. So they're like, all right, I guess that's what we'll do. And they try to collect bottle caps, and it's just super unsuccessful. They don't get very many. And then as they're walking, they realize they're right outside Allison's house, and they decide to go spy on her because they're like pretending to be spies, as you do on a rainy day, trying to collect bottle caps. But they are like peeking in the window. They realize or notice that, the girls haven't gotten very far. And then all of a sudden, Allison's mom scares the shit out of them and is like a little bit passive aggressive, being like, oh, you guys are just late. I told Allison you guys wouldn't be so rude to not show up. And they're like, oh, God, okay, awkward. So they go inside and they notice, nothing's getting done. And they finally come clean. They tell Allison that that's not the project they're doing. They're collecting bottle caps. And Allison is like disappointed because, again, Molly literally hates this girl for no reason. And then, Molly gets this idea. So they haven't gotten very far on their socks. No one's even finished one, but they've all finished like a square. And she comes up with the idea, well, maybe we could just make a quilt instead. Everyone, I think Allison's a little hesitant at first, but then they all agree. And so instead they make this big quilt, and Molly gets all the credit, even though like she didn't even want to be there to begin with. And they end up winning the contest and get their picture in the paper, and the quilt is sent off to her dad over in England. And, Molly comes out victorious. Definitely didn't deserve to do so, but it was a really good idea. And I don't know. I loved this book so much. I think it's got to be my favorite. I don't know if it's the best one because I really loved it. I must have read this one the most. I think like I said, I was learning how to read chapter books, and this might be one of the first ones that I successfully was able to finish on my own. So I don't know. That's probably why I like it so much. But again, a big theme of this book, just like the first one, is rationing. In the first book, we talked about the rationing of certain foods and sugars and butters. And in this one, we're really talking about, rationing of supplies. They realize really quickly when they're trying to collect these bottle caps that people aren't just giving those out. They're trying to save them so they also can provide to the war effort and make sure all the big people helping the war get their supplies like tin and such. So, and metal, scrap metals. So that's the big theme for this one. Like I said, definitely love this one. And now we're going to get into the fashion, I guess. And we're going to look at all of the clothes and accessories that you could get from the second book, Molly Learns a Lesson. All right, so now we are going to look at Molly's school outfit from the second book, Molly Learns a Lesson. And while this book may be my favorite book from the series, I'm going to be honest with you guys, Molly's school outfit is my least favorite outfit from her collection. I don't like the way it fits. I don't like the plaid pattern. And I know this kind of look was very popular during that time, but I just don't like it. I don't like the colors. It's almost Christmassy, but they've added in some of this yellow. I just don't like it. I never have. I got this recently because American Girl, this is one of the outfits that they do have available currently for Molly from their re-release. And it's just something I never had, but I did get it because it was like $14.99. They had this big clearance sale. She also came with some accessories that you could get. Not really interesting. I think her desk is pretty neat, but I'm not really into the school supplies. Her bag is kind of cute, but it's pretty similar to her purse that she already has. So I did not get those, even though they were on sale. And I did not have this outfit as a kid. Had no interest in it. Maybe just because I didn't really like school. I don't know. But here it is. For what it is, it's all right. Again, I don't like the colors. I don't like the print. It's just not my favorite from all of her wonderful collection. So let's take a better look. All the dolls do come with shoes and socks, so they're different. And she also came with different ribbons, so that's nice. I appreciate that, but just as a whole, I would definitely say her school plaid outfit is my least favorite of all of her outfits. Some takeaways from this book. Obviously, it is my favorite book of the series. I think the main message is working against each other doesn't help anyone, and coming together can be super helpful and make everyone become a winner. In this book, also, I will say it is the first appearance of her iconic raincoat, which I will be showing you guys later. I almost did it now, but it's a big part of the sixth book. So, yeah. What else? Let's see. Oh, I think Molly's obsession with her teacher and her fiance is a little weird, but understandable, whatever. And the secret hideout is so iconic. I love that. It's just a core memory of my brain. And again, favorite, least favorite piece of this whole Molly collection is this. So just some of her other outfits are way better, and we're gonna get into those next. So this is just, I think this is the only outfit. Let me just make sure. I think this is the only outfit from that book besides the raincoat, but that makes another appearance. But yeah, it's all right. I mean, looking at it now, it's not too bad, but it's definitely not something that I would display my Molly doll in. But it's all right. So here's a look at it. And now we're going to get into the third book, which is really exciting. This is called Molly's Surprise, and this is their holiday Christmas book that all of the girls get. And this book is also very good, one that I very closely remember reading as a kid. And basically, it's Christmas time. Molly's dad is away, so her family the dynamic has changed quite a bit. This book, you really get to learn a little bit more about her sister Jill. So in the beginning of the book, Molly's writing her dad a letter, and she's kind of talking about how excited they are for Christmas, and they haven't gotten any presents from him, but they'll probably arrive soon or something. And Jill is like watching Molly write this letter, and she tells her, I don't think you should put that in there. And Molly's like, why? Jill is like, well, maybe dad wasn't able to send us presents, or maybe they got lost. And by the time he gets this, if, he did send presents, there's nothing he'll be able to do about it. And if he didn't, he's going to feel bad because it's too late to send any then. So Molly's like, okay. And then Jill goes on this like rant of how she wants the Christmas tree to be more sophisticated, grown up. She basically is like trying to take all the fun out of Christmas. She's like, no, we should only have certain color decorations on the tree, and just it should be very boring. And Molly's like, no, bitch, that's not how it's going. And so they're all, bummed out, but they're doing their best. Their grandma and their grandpa are going to come visit for Christmas. They're supposed to bring the Christmas tree, so the kids get excited. They're going to go get all of the decorations ready, just so when grandma and grandpa get there, they're ready to go. And then, unfortunately, the day or maybe a couple days before Christmas, grandma and grandpa call, and they let Jill know that they can't come anymore because they have a flat tire and their spare is not, able to drive that far of a distance. I don't think it says where they're from, but they had to go far of enough distance where they couldn't use their spare tire. Back in the day, stuff was way less accessible. Today, if you blow out your tire, you can head over to, not sponsored, Discount Tires or Big O Tires, and they'll fix it for you super quickly, but it wasn't the case. And so Jill tells them, like, okay, well, not only is dad not here for Christmas and we have no package from him, but also grandma and grandpa can't come, which means we won't see them, and we also won't have a tree. And all of the kids are just like, this sucks. This is the worst Christmas ever. And then this is where we have some character development. So in the first two books, her brother and sister, they're kind of just, typical sibling bickering, whatever. They're just too cool for school, basically. And so we start to see a little bit of a shift here. And so they all decide together, hey, if grandma and grandpa can't bring us a tree, dad's not here, we have nothing from him, why don't we surprise our mom and we'll go get our own tree? So they scrunch up all the change that they have, and this is a big moment for Jill because she had been saving her babysitting money so she could buy herself her own Christmas present. She wants like a knitted hat or something, I don't remember. And she's like, well, you know what, this is more important. So Molly also gets her change, so does Ricky, and they go buy the cheapest tree that they can find. So they go and do that. They put the tree up, I think. I might be going a little bit out of order. I don't know. Like I said, for these 3 books, I'm just going off my memory. They get the tree, and then one day, the next day maybe, it's snowing. Molly wakes up. It's all covered in snow. She goes outside, and Jill comes with her, and she is like jumping around, and Molly spots this box that is buried in the snow, and her and Jill dig it up, and they realize it's a package from Dad. It arrived. It was just buried under snow. It probably arrived earlier that morning. I don't know. Her mom's been at work. Everyone else is asleep. And on the box, it specifically says, "Do not open till Christmas. Keep hidden." And so Jill and Molly, I mean, they're so excited, but they're like, okay, like, should we tell Mom? And they decide that no, they're going to keep it just like Dad asked. They're going to keep it hidden until Christmas. They're not going to show anyone. They don't tell anyone. They almost do a couple times. And so their plan is after church that night or something, they're going to wake up at midnight and they're going to sneak down. They're going to go get the box and they're going to put Dad's box under the tree because no one else knew about it. So it definitely was going to be a Christmas surprise. And they wake up the next morning, the kids run downstairs, so does Mom, and they're all screaming because they have a package from Dad. Their mom is like almost in tears. She's just so shocked. She doesn't know how this could have happened because she didn't put it there. Then she kind of realizes Jill and Molly did this, and she's so grateful for them. And inside the box, there's everything that the kids mentioned that they wanted. So I think like, I don't know what they all wanted. All I know is Molly wanted a doll, and this is a common thing. So in the 3rd book, the Christmas story for all of the original American Girls, the 3rd book is revolved around Christmas or the holidays, and there's a doll. Each one of them gets a doll for Christmas, and it's a little interesting because Molly really does not seem like a doll girl, which is funny because, I mean, just considering she's my favorite, I don't know. But she gets a doll and it's dressed as a nurse and she's super excited. And there's a note from Dad just saying how much he misses them. And it's very, very touching. And then the best part is, well, first of all, this is like Jill's moment where you're like, oh, wow, she's not a total bitch, and she really, puts her neck out for Molly. And they kind of have a bonding moment, which I really love. And then at the end, they're like around the radio because, that's all they had back then. And they're listening to some broadcast and her dad comes on the radio and gives them a shout out. And it is just the best Christmas ever, even though it was supposed to be the worst. And yeah, I loved this book as a kid. I'm going to show you guys in a second, but one of these outfits, her Christmas outfit, Molly's Christmas outfit, it's this cute little green velvet dress with white buttons. I had this when I was a kid and loved it so much. But yeah, also love this book. I would say this is one of the better ones also in the series, but I'm loving it. And like I said, there's some character development in this particular book, which you'll see develops even more as time goes. So far, Molly's rationing, we're still continuing with that. So in this one, I would say the rationing is more like kids really during this time shouldn't have been expecting gifts. And I think Molly's lesson that she learns in this book, she really has to be realistic, which is, I think that's Jill's word or something, realistic. And because of what was going on in the world at the time, toys were not being made like a priority. Money was tight, things were being rationed, so toys weren't being made as much. And she realizes, even though she really wants, a doll for Christmas, mostly she wants her dad home. And then even after they get all their presents, the best moment is just hearing her dad's voice at the end. And I think Molly realizes like the importance of knowing, we're all materialistic a little bit. I love dolls. I love getting dolls. But she realizes that it's not the most important thing for Christmas. So I really love that. And also, just adding in a grandpa's story, I remember when I got Molly, I believe it was for my 8th birthday, maybe 9th. I don't remember. That's also probably why I really like her, because I was her exact age when I was reading these. But I remember when my grandparents would get me American Girl dolls, they would always get me the doll and then an outfit, and it was usually the Christmas outfit, depending on if I got it for my birthday or for Christmas, because I was a little bit spoiled. I specifically remember coming home, it was definitely my birthday, and my grandpa, I don't even know why I didn't immediately go to my room, but my grandpa was like, well, did you go in your room? And I was like, no, and he told me to, and I go in, and he had put the Molly, like the box that she came in, she was under the cover, so I knew what it was when I walked into my room, and I, pulled her out and was so excited, and they actually got me the Christmas outfit to go with her, for when they got me this doll. So that's just a little fun fact that I also remember, is because also I think I mentioned it, I must have, my grandma was way more into dolls than my grandpa was, but he was still very supportive, and Molly was just a more significant one because, like I said, I just remember reading the books and having the interactions from the books with him. And when he got me, or when they got me Molly, he was the one to be like, go look for her, and he had like put it nicely under my cover, so that was really sweet, and also one of my favorite memories. So okay, so jumping into Molly's Surprise and the outfit that comes from that book, I would definitely say that this dress, it's a green velvet dress, is probably maybe her second most recognizable outfit, second or third. I think the raincoat might be ahead of that, but this is definitely also another very iconic look. I had this as a kid, and yeah, it's very cute. And something very interesting about this is that Molly's original artwork in her books was a little bit different than what I had growing up. So I think, let's see, from like 1986 to maybe 1990, I don't know the exact date. They definitely had different illustrations for the books. And so Molly did get a complete makeover before I got to her. But something that's interesting is that on my version of the doll, she has these buttons, and it is on the cover of the book. You can see them clearly there. But in the original artwork, you can see there are no buttons on there. And the original green dress that you could get from Molly also did not have the button. So I think that's just an interesting variation. I'm glad they changed it because these aren't, I mean, this outfit doesn't look very expensive, but I mean, without the buttons, it would look even less expensive. So I'm glad they did that. But I think the first four books for Molly all had this original artwork that was eventually changed into something better, in my opinion. I think the original artwork is a little too, I don't know, there's just something a little bit off-putting. It's just not the Molly that I know. So they did end up changing that. And with those illustration changes, they also changed the costume and made it better. So I definitely love this one. Put her in this every single year around Christmas time. It's very exciting. I like to change my Molly. I like to change Molly's outfit via the season that we're in, but definitely love the Christmas outfit. It's so cute. And this book is also just so good. I think there's such good character development with her older sister Jill and Molly herself. I think the main message of this is that, materialistic things and gifts are not everything. But I do think it also kind of explains how, sometimes it's okay to not be practical. And favorite from this favorite costume, I mean, this is the only one that we released. This is the only one that they released, but they also had some really cool accessories that you could get. I never had these and I still don't, but there's several variations on these. Some of them go up there in price. Getting an original one of Molly's doll that she gets in the end of the book, I think is pretty difficult, but they did change them over the years, but no complaints. I think the last book, I wasn't too crazy about the accessories, but I do appreciate these ones. I think they're very cool. So love that. Definitely one of my personal favorites from Molly's collection. It's so iconic. So that being said, we are going to take a little break. And next week, I will be back with my second part of my Molly American Girl deep dive. And we will be covering book 4, 5, and 6, some of her short stories. We're going to talk about the movie and just some of my overall thoughts on Molly's collection, her stories, and all that fun stuff. So I will see you guys next week for part 2. If you haven't yet, give me a follow on Instagram, Britney Spears Custom Dolls. On TikTok, Britney Spears Dolls, and Twitter, B Spears Dolls. You can also follow the official podcast Instagram, iconicdollcast.